Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Dungeons and Dopamine.
Ta-da!
Hi, welcome to episode 51 of Dungeons and Dopamine. I'm Jess.
I'm Bre.
We are here to dope you up.
Ta-da!
I love
had
your
to make it sound
enthusiasm.
less creepy.
Let's just dive in. Okay. So
All right.
I have a talking point for us today. Has to do with dope.
Surprise! That sounds like more of a Dungeons and Dopamine After Dark topic.
Speaking of Dungeons and Dopamine After Dark, let's chat a little.
Let's chat.
So Patreon, that's not your name.
It is now.
Patreon Pagan.
Sounds beautiful.
Absolutely. So we thought, this is actually your idea, I'm not going to say we. This was all you.
This is your fault.
We thought of adding an extra little like Patreon subclass. I don't know. Okay.
Jessica still has soup brain.
I play
It's not her
D&D.
fault.
And just having it be D&D After Dark, which is not as dirty as it sounds. The idea would be that I'd get into a little bit more gruesome stuff, and Bre would talk about
Whatever I want.
yeah.
I have a background so I worked in an OB-GYN office for...
I have a background in sex.
I do. I worked in OB-GYN for 5 years. I did pure romance for like 3 years, which sounds like a gross MLM, but out of all of them, pure romance actually like focuses on the health and the well-being of a woman. What I took from all that is, number one, that women don't know enough about their bodies.
Seriously.
And number two, that we don't talk about the stuff we deal with nearly enough.
Right?
But also, I don't want to talk about that stuff on our podcast just for fun. Like,
And I mean, like,
I don't want to be riding in my car and have to make Connor listen to me talk about sex or periods
Menstruation
or whatever I decide to talk about.
which, like, collectively, any men who listen to this podcast just went, oh, thank God.
It's going to be special content. I don't have to listen to
I do
it.
not have to spend my dollar to listen to this. I guess I might as well just throw out a reminder we have a Patreon.
Yeah,
It's not dark yet, but
but it could be.
it will be.
And we'll probably do, we were talking like maybe $1 a month.
Yeah,
Or-
we'll have to see how it kind of goes with how Patreon works, but
Mhm.
like,
It's not that we want to make people pay for that content. It's just we don't want it to be... We want there to be a separation so that you know it might be a little bit more of a risque topic.
right, or gruesome, or
Something you don't want to listen to with your children around.
Yes.
Or while you're sitting at work.
yeah, yep. Although my last topic last week was pretty dark,
It was.
but I cut out a lot of it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I like to sleep.
I didn't want to read it.
I just like to read about it and then write it and then never think about it again.
talk about it or anything. So anyway, we were having, this is totally a different topic. We were having a conversation via text the other day because we still talk even when we're not recording.
It's a little ridiculous, let's be
kind of
honest.
ridiculous. Yeah.
I think I went all last weekend without talking to you, and it was strange. Or at least like a full day.
Yeah, because I was wildly crazy busy.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, your daughter turned 8 or something, I guess. Jeez.
So I was saying that, speaking of her turning 8, I got the house ready, cleaned it up, made it look nice, but we also had the dumpster to get rid of any of the trash that was upstairs, as well as like when you're doing construction or getting ready to build, you get a ton of boxes and stuff. I got boxes for toilets. I got boxes for light fixtures. I got boxes for all of our Christmas stuff. And that used to be piled up on one of my porches.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked like a hoarder. And also, my dryer vent goes out there.
But yeah, if you only saw your house from like
The
the back
porches.
area where you get into the house, you'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
I wonder if the whole house is crammed full of stuff like that.
It's not, I swear. I tell people there's a ship shopper, not Joe. Rock on, Joe. That looks like Dave Grohl a little bit, so we call him Dave Grocery.
I was going to ask if it was Dave Groceries.
It is. He told him that we're not hoarders, please don't judge me. And he was like, oh, no, you're good. I'm sure he went to his car and was like, hoarder. But anyway.
Never coming here again.
So, all that being said, we worked our butts off last week. It was tons of work, and I was so tired by the end of every single day, where I spent at least an hour cleaning or organizing or decorating or prepping for this party, which, by the way, the party wasn't really the reason. It was just my excuse. As anyone with ADHD knows, you have to have people coming over to clean your home.
Ours is next
and
weekend.
It can't be Bre.
Right, because I don't judge anybody
or
harsh
Rob and
enough.
Melissa. Because we've had bras hanging up to dry while they've come over. And we're just like, what's up, homies?
Your family, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. So, and Brighton now. Ha, Brighton. So anyway, the actual point. I told you that every other aspect of my life besides the cleaning of this house went to the wayside while we did that. My kid ate Lunchables for dinner. Ryan and I ate either fast food or like cereal for dinner, and it was usually late, like 9-10 o'clock.
I was going to say 10 o'clock cereal dinner.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah. And, I worked, of course, but I worked less hours. All I could think about was what I needed to do next. So you and I were talking about how it seems like when you finally get one part of your life in order, the rest of it goes downhill. You always, and I won't say fail at something, because I didn't fail at anything last week. I got my work done. I got my house cleaned. We all ate food and went to bed, and we did what we needed to do. We actually had vet appointments and stuff that we needed to get people.
Holy
and
cow.
Dogs and a dentist appointment. And so that was like nonstop. Mm-hmm. We filled the dumpster. We got the stuff that we needed to get out. So we didn't fail. But
Not at all. You kind of won.
But it feels like it, because our kid ate Lunchables and we ate fast food or cereal, and
I didn't meet any of my goals because
Yeah.
I was focused on these other goals.
Exactly. So it's like unfair. And I know for me personally, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist.
Sure.
I don't
You
like
just like things to be a particular way.
perfect.
It's like the most only child quality you have for not being an only child. Which again, your brother is 5 years older than you.
Yeah, I might as well have been.
Yeah, and same. I mean, and I don't consider myself, or at least besides in like schoolwork, I don't consider myself to be a perfectionist, but I definitely like things to be done in my way.
I don't know. I want to do it right. If I'm going to do it, if I'm going to clean the house should look clean. But we were talking about how you feel like you failed.
Yeah, and if it's not perfect, then it's not done, and it's
Yes.
and I have failed.
Yep, it's looming always.
I think so. Well, there is the perfectionist part of it, which is also, there's some ADHD to that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, imposter.
And that, yeah, and I forgot where I was going with
I'm
that.
sorry.
Sorry.
I yelled imposter and,
And I'm like,
derailed everything.
So sus.
We must vote them out.
And so ADHD, and I don't know if it's the imposter syndrome, some of the rejection sensitivity dysphoria.
Yes.
So if you were ever told your room wasn't clean enough, or somebody judged you for what your house looked like or your room, now that becomes I have to do this perfectly, otherwise somebody somewhere might judge me.
Exactly.
It's awful. And we also tend to be people that take on a lot, ADHD. So you don't just have a job and a kid or a job and a family and a house to take care of. You have a job and a family and a house and pets and a podcast and a great big yard, and you're in the middle of a construction project. And in the middle of your construction project, you also started renovating your kitchen. And you need to clean out your porches because that's where everything went to take care of the construction. So you are set up to fail.
Yes.
Because to get one thing done, there are 10 things you have to do first.
Yes.
And then your to-do list ends up being 30 pages long, and it's well, it's impossible to be perfect,
which is super lame.
Mm-hmm. And very frustrating for my brain.
Absolutely. And that brings me to our episode today. Because I texted Bre and said, hey, I don't think I can do 2 topics this week. I have to get ahead of myself so that I have a topic always available ahead of myself, if that makes sense. Anyway.
It does too.
Thanks. We're going to talk about some embarrassing stories.
We're going to go back in time a little bit.
Rewind.
To our teenage years.
We're just going to start the podcast over, word for word from the beginning.
Yep.
So Ryan's going to play
not
the
even
rewind
Google
noise.
Translate style. Just.
But we're also just going to, like, flatly read it, the transcript. And then I was like, wow, I'm a perfectionist.
Ha 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 ha.
Your face.
It's gonna be great. We're gonna get so many new listeners.
You heard these idiots. No, we're gonna go farther back than the beginning of this episode.
Jessica and I were teenage girls at some point, and spent a lot of money on wrestling magazines. But besides that, we also spent a lot of money on 17 magazine and some Cosmopolitans. And we used to read all of the embarrassing stories people would send in and take the quizzes.
We also both worked for the school paper. It was a class.
Yeah.
And we were so lazy.
Yep.
We were seniors.
Thanks, Mr. Marshall.
I appreciate you. So we actually used to write embarrassing stories for the paper.
Gosh, I forgot about that.
We had people like send them in to us. We asked everybody like, hey, give us your embarrassing stories. And they did. And some of them were so mean.
and this was a thing back then. Like in all the 17 magazines, there was like
Reader's Digest.
Always 2 pages of embarrassing stories, or
Cosmo had them.
This happened to me.
And I think in Cosmo, especially in Cosmo, it was things like I remember one really vividly where this girl went to a theme park and really had to pee, and she was wearing a pad, so she just let it rip.
I remember that one too.
And she just peed her pants, thinking that the pad would absorb it all, but
they don't work like that.
No. And even if it did, pee is probably too fast. So she just peed herself in front of her date. So it was kind of typically always stories like that sort of revolved around women or our bodies hating us. Anyway, can you think of anything embarrassing that you've done? Like, that's funny? I have a few embarrassing stories, but they're not really funny.
Right. The beautiful part about ADHD is my memory is so bad that right. I might have been embarrassed at the time, but
I think of things sometimes while I'm like laying in bed. Remember that one time in 1992 when you accidentally said "buh" instead of and everybody laughed? And then immediately I'm over it.
Yeah.
And
I mean, mine were always like, I asked a boy out that didn't like me.
Right.
And he made fun of me in front of all of his friends.
I did a lot of
But even
like,
then I was like, he's gross. I don't like him anymore.
Yes, exactly.
He's kind of a jerk. Screw that guy.
So, I mean, I embarrass myself on the daily, basically. I do a podcast.
Right. People laugh at me all the time.
With me.
Oh, right. And I'm sure there were times, like, I thought somebody was waving to me, and I waved, and
absolutely.
It turned out it was someone behind me.
Yeah, I don't have anything good. But let's see what strangers have.
I have one to start us out.
Okay.
So it's actually from, there used to be, well, there still is, I just can't get on it today, a website called Texts from Last Night.
Oh, yes.
And it came out when I was working at the OB-GYN office. And then one of our doctors at the time, she was newly divorced and had started dating. And he knew where she worked. She works in a gynecology office. That is important to the story. And she comes darting out of her office, and she's dying. She's laughing so hard. She's dying. We're like, what is going on? She's like, I don't remember what the guy's name was. I'm going to call him Mike. She said, Mike just texted me and asked me how my day was going. And I tried to text back, pretty good, busy. And instead I wrote, it auto-corrected to, pretty good, bushy.
Oh my god.
And it was just perfect.
That
I think about it
perfect.
every time I think of text from last night.
Or every time you type busy.
Yeah. Bushy.
Okay.
Once I was getting some award or something in college, and other people ahead of me were posing for a picture. So when I went up to get my award, I smiled and posed. Well, turns out they were posing for specific people taking a picture, like their moms or dads in the audience. So during my turn, I stood awkwardly and posed for absolutely no one until I realized it and skulked away red-faced.
Oh boy. This one's less of a embarrassing moment for the writer and just sort of a funny story. But I'm going to share it because I think it's kind of cute. I served both in the Army and Navy. I served both in the Army and in the Navy. Here's one from the Navy. I was on a submarine handing out work assignments. I told one electrician to check the headlights. He told me he wasn't going to fall for that. He said he knew submarines didn't have headlights to see where they were going, and he had been warned about that ruse. I told him, that's true, but the bathrooms on Navy ships are called ahead, and I have a report the crew is trying to piss in the dark because the overhead lighting is out.
I was taking a long nap while pregnant. During this time, I was starting up a bath bomb business, just a small online one. I was dreaming that I owned a large warehouse and I had employees that would answer the phone, and one employee stepped away, so I answered the phone for them. With confidence, I said the slogan, "Hello, this is Let's Fizz Bath Bombs. How can I help you today?" The person on the phone gave a long pause and said, are you okay? And this is when my brain caught up with the real life. I had answered my phone lying next to me as I napped, not in my dream like I had thought. My midwife called me to check up on me, and in a very slurred voice, not like the confident one I had dreamed of, I said the slogan. The drunken-sounding slurs left her speechless, and after asking me if I was okay, I was fully out of my dream state, and we continued normal conversation, never to speak of it again.
So this one's probably worse for the writer because he was in high school, but I was a senior in high school, and I was talking to my crush as we were walking to the senior parking lot. Good conversation. Not flirty, just friendly. We see this car that was in a bad accident. It was an old car, too. The car was hit in the back behind the wheel, and the quarter panel was broken off so badly on the side that the only thing keeping it together was duct tape. She looks at the car and says, "Wow, I'd hate to be the one driving that." I laugh and say back, "Yeah, that would suck. Anyway, I gotta go. Have a good night." And I walked up to the totaled car and got in. It was my car.
Ooh.
I bet she was way more embarrassed about that than you.
She probably still cringes about that.
This one's sort of sad. I casually ordered some pizza for myself, and when the bell rang, I went downstairs and saw my housemate with a super gloomy look. I was confused and casually asked how was she. She didn't reply, and she just looked at me like she looked so sad. So I just awkwardly grabbed the pizza and left. As I ate my pizza, I scrolled through my WhatsApp. And then they put a little note in there, the notifications had been turned off, and saw her message in the group chat asking if anyone wanted to share a pizza. Amazingly, I checked the timestamp, and it was 20 minutes before I ordered mine. What are the odds? This is very awkward. I also can't share my pizza because it's non-halal. So so bad. Anyone want to share a pizza? Anybody? This non-halal pizza is gonna be delicious. Oh my gosh.
She just takes it and sneaks back up to her room.
I don't know why you're so sad all of the time.
That's beautiful. This sounds like something I would do. My parents were selling our home, and I was the only one home when my mom called to say we were having a short notice showing. I cleaned up the place super quick and grabbed my dog. Instead of leaving the premises and going for a drive, I parked my car at the end of our horseshoe driveway and hopped in the back seat to look like I wasn't in the car.
Oh my.
But my dog was going nuts when the realtor and the prospective buyers showed up. I could see them in my car mirrors, and I know the realtor could see me. She started walking up to my car, but stopped midway, shrugged her shoulders, and walked back to the door and went on with the showing. As soon as they went in, I drove away.
That's even more suspect. Like, did you just drive away after that?
It would look, as a realtor, it would look so much less suspicious if he had just parked at the end of the driveway and stayed in the driver's seat.
Reading a book or
like,
staring at his phone.
Sellers do that all the time. But to climb into the back seat and pretend he wasn't there.
With a dog in the car.
Right. Which would really just make people go, should we be concerned about the dog in the car?
Or like, I don't know if this person is safe. Are we okay here?
Are they living in the car?
Does that will they
person stay?
Will they come back after we buy the house?
Are they squatting in the driveway?
This one is kind of gross, but also kind of funny. So last year in spring, I was walking with a few friends of mine and my crush, and I have some bad pollen allergies. Lucky for me, our school planted massive trees that drop quarter-size balls of pollen everywhere.
Oh, good.
Long story short...
Let's move there.
Exactly. Long story short, I was having an enjoyable conversation with my crush, which went on for quite a long time. All of a sudden, I was fighting the urge to sneeze when suddenly I couldn't hold it any longer. I sneezed very loudly, making everyone look directly at me. And it wasn't like a regular sneeze. It was a string of snot.
Oh no.
I saw it fling away from my face and then quickly slingshot back and hit me right in the face. I have never experienced something so disgusting or embarrassing to this day. Oh. Ew. I was asleep on a plane heading back home. In my dream, I was hugging my wife, who I'd said a teary farewell to about 6 hours before. We lived in different countries at this time. My dreamy scene suddenly evaporated, and I was presented with the reality of my arm cuddling up to the guy next to me as he turned around with a horrified look on his face. I took my arm away and never said a word, which probably made it worse. He only saw me awake with my arm around him. So I doubt he'd have believed me anyway, but I was so embarrassed. At the airport, at the luggage collection, I saw him quickly grab his bag and walk off in a fast pace, looking very sheepish. Oh.
I was on a vacation in Miami with my daughter back in July. We went to the beach on our second day there and went swimming. There were some rough waves here and there, and I guess at some point my bikini bottoms got pulled right off and I lost them. The thing is though, I didn't notice that they were gone. We got out of the water and I still didn't notice, and neither did my daughter at first because she was walking ahead of me. But I started noticing that people were gawking at me. Then we got back to our spot and my daughter turned around and looked at me and said, "Where'd your bottoms go?"
Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. These are like my favorite kind of stories. Once at work, I had just finished a task and tried to talk to one of my coworkers. He asked me where I had put the boxes, and I tried to tell him that I burned them and I got rid of them at the same time. My gas mask was still on, and trying to say them at the same time, I just said, "Bucket!" really loud. Everyone laughed.
The train was full and my partner was behind me, so I extended my hand in between all the passengers so he wouldn't lose me. All this without looking back. I find his hand, but he wouldn't grab my hand back. He kept pushing my hand down numerous times and in between me trying to grab it. At one point, I just got kind of frustrated. After my third or fourth attempt of grabbing his hand, that I tap him in the hip to kind of say, "Why aren't you grabbing my hand?" So after getting off the train, I turn around and I see this old lady looking at me confused.
I don't know why this is so funny to me. And the irony of this is that I'm reading it from BuzzFeed, who are the ones who go and steal from everywhere else.
Right?
This just happened to me today at my first day at a new job. Last night, my operating manager sent around a message saying that Friday's theme was Disney. Being the proper Disney adult I am, I had my Mary Poppins Halloween costume ready to go. I marched into my new clinic, head held high, heart full of whimsy, to see a whole staff wearing business casual. I managed to ditch the hat and the umbrella, leaving me in an Edwardian blouse with a red bow tie and black and black bottoms. I spent my first day working in a clinic feeling like a catering waiter. An Edwardian catering waiter, but a waiter nonetheless. It's the bow tie for me.
Yeah, she took off the hat and got rid of the bag, but left the rest of it.
I also wonder, what did it mean? Did she misread it?
Right. It's like, we just want you to think about Disney today.
Maybe they were like Disney jewelry or something.
This is the same kind of story, but makes me laugh. A shop assistant was showing me the baubles I was picking up for a friend. I saw the one I was missing off the list and was reaching for it, and without looking at him, thought I had reached for the one he had. I ended up holding his hand. I said, "So sorry, I thought that was the ball." It didn't help that he was a young, very good-looking 20-ish year old, and I'm a middle-aged mom. At the till, I ended up getting him again, and in my embarrassment and haste to get out of there, I was snatching up my shopping into the bag and grabbed his hand again. My son said, "Mom, why do you keep holding that man's hands?"
My mommies hate shopping with me because whenever she would hand people cash, I'd be like, "She did a really good job making those this time." Or like, "Is that check gonna bounce this time, Mom?" I had a horrible cold, so my coworker offered me a vitamin C tablet. They figured I already knew what to do, which was drop the tablet in a cup of hot water and watch it dissolve before drinking. Well, never assume I know anything. I put the tablet in my mouth and drank a warm cup of water, leaving it to dissolve and profusely pour in foam out of my mouth and all over my desk and floor like I had a case of the rabies. The whole office laughed so hard, and it was a staple of me being dubbed the atomic blonde at the office from there on out. That's fabulous.
I was driving a truck, and 1 mile from my exit, the truck died. This was before cell phones, so I could see the delivery location from where I was, so I put the orange reflectors out and walked across the field so I could call my boss to let him know. The location was a famous cosmetic company, and the office portion was completely plate glass, and since I had made countless deliveries before, all the ladies knew me, and I knew anyone facing my general direction could easily spot a person approaching from the empty field. The front office was 80% female, and I always enjoyed visiting with them. Right before the property started separating the field from the parking lot, I had to either jump over a little man-made canal or walk the length towards the street and go around, so I decided to jump. I made the jump, but landed on some algae and fell right on my ass in the mud. I tried to play it cool, but I was wearing khaki work pants. And when I walked into the office, they were already laughing at me.
This one's a little bit rated maybe PG-13, but it's still pretty funny. Not the first day of my job, but in the first month. I wasn't feeling well and thought I texted, "I am sick. I am taking a sick day" to my boss. Texts are how we regularly communicate. She replied, "Okay, no problem," and I went about my day. The next day I went to text her again and realized I had written, "I am taking a dick day." I was so embarrassed and so apologetic. She just laughed it off and said I thought I needed to get my rocks off, and she was fine with it.
What a nice boss. This is awful. When I was in the ER, someone had passed away down the hall. I didn't know this, and while the doctor was talking, there was a sound of someone wailing in the background. The doctor said, "Sorry, we've had a death." But my dumbass thought she said deaf. I was wildly confused why the doctor would say that. And simply replied with, "Oh, that's lovely." She gave me the most judgmental expression I've ever seen and immediately left the room. The doctor refused to come back into the room. I had to ask the nurse to tell her I had misheard her, and eventually it was sorted out. Oh, that's lovely.
Okay, I'm probably not going to do this justice, but I heard a story on TikTok. And this little boy, or girl, she was a girl, she had, she lived with her mom, single mom, had a couple siblings, and one night she heard a weird noise and went out and looked and saw that her mom had dropped a bowl of spaghetti. So she looked at her mom and she said, "Are you going to eat all that?" And her mom got really mad and sent her to bed. And then police showed up. And they started asking the girl to, like, draw pictures and, show us your best picture of a dragon and blah, 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 blah. So this kid was like, I can't ask. It was very cute the way she wrote it. "I can't ask my mom for spaghettis anymore because it makes her really mad. She calls the police." So this woman grew up, and she said one day she was thinking about it. She was telling the story to someone and realized my mom wouldn't have called the police about spaghettis. So she called her mom and said, "Hey, what's the story?" So someone had broken into their home, and mom used a pew-pew to end their life. And then her 6-year-old walked downstairs, pointed at the deceased man, and
Eat all that.
Eat all that. She had mentioned something about I could never figure out why my mom never wanted to sleep in the same room as me.
That poor mother. Spent all those years. Your child was just a psychopath.
She said, like, I figured out finally why my mom thought I was crazy, and my mom figured out why I was really cagey around spaghetti the rest of my life. We went under the bleachers at a popular park in Florida. I was in 7th grade, circa 1987, and had no idea how to compose myself. I didn't know if I was supposed to close my eyes, and I was insecure that my nose would get in the way. I just opened my mouth, kept my eyes wide open, and twirled my tongue around twice. I still remember the guy's first and last name. And then they signed it Much Better Kisser Now.
I sure hope so.
It was Spirit Week, and one of the days was Weather Day. Thinking we had the best idea ever, my best friend and I dressed up as if we had gone through a tornado. Hair a mess, makeup a mess, our clothes all messy. We walked into school so confidently until we saw everyone else dressed as weather types. A cloud, sunshine, etc. Everyone just stared at us and we were so embarrassed.
At least they were clever.
Right? I was in the airport and the TSA agent told me to scan my license face down, but I just heard, scan your face down. So I put my face on the scanner and waited. I wish it was a joke, but no, this happened. The TSA guy could not stop laughing, and now I have to go into witness protection.
Now I can never fly again. My Auntie Julie, who played a whole game of 10-pin bowling in someone's orthopedic shoes, which she picked up off the counter by mistake.
I snorted. Can you imagine being the person going back for your expensive orthopedic
You're like,
shoes?
Where'd they go?
Auntie Julie's wearing that. The worst thing just happened. I won't recover. And just reached into a box of free samples outside a chicken restaurant. Only it wasn't free samples. It was a man holding a box of chicken. His chicken. I tried to steal this man's chicken. I don't know why it's so funny. Can you imagine being the man?
You're just trying to leave the place with your chickens. I don't even know what I would do.
I go home and be like, Ryan, I didn't get us dinner, someone stole her chicken.
Alright, so my husband and I were driving around the city and it was pouring outside. Absolutely pouring. We were about to pass the light rail train tracks, which go in both directions, when the crossing gates came down because the light rail was approaching. One idiot in a van decided he could make it across before the gates came all the way down. He kept on driving, but he did not make it. Instead, his vehicle was now trapped between the gates. We could see from our car that this person was panicking. His life was flashing before his eyes. In his movie mind, the light rail was about to crash into the van and drag it for dozens of yards before finally stopping. So he did what anyone would do. He violently pushed the door open and ran in the pouring rain for his life. He was halfway down the street before he stopped, turned around and noticed that the light rail was patiently waiting for him to move the vehicle.
I wish I would have seen that.
Can you imagine, like, freaking out, panicking, running out of your vehicle, completely deserting it? You look back and everybody's just like,
Excuse me, sir, can you just move your vehicle? Also, can you imagine, okay, so you run away that fast with adrenaline in your system, and then by the time you realize and turn around, the adrenaline's going away. So you have to, like, huff and puff back to your
crashing, you're nauseous, you feel like death. You're probably crying because all the adrenaline wore off.
I was out walking the dog. I noticed a neighbor was waving at me through their living room window. I thought, how nice. So I waved back rather enthusiastically. Then I realized she was just washing her window.
The lady at the DMV took my picture for the license and registration. Then she asked, body type? Slim to average, I guess? Of the vehicle. Oh.
This one is awful. Wife and I met her friend for lunch one day. I bent over to give her friend's baby a peck on the cheek. Didn't see she was breastfeeding until it was too late. It wasn't her baby, I guess.
Oh, that would have been awful.
Can you imagine the way? No, I didn't realize. I'm so sorry, honey.
My granddad was on a train once and noticed that a passenger had forgotten his bag. He grabbed the bag, ran after him, yelled, "Wait, you forgot this!" and threw it out onto the platform as the doors were closing. Turns out it was another passenger's bag.
Grandpa just he just did the best heist ever. I didn't even need
You forgot this. I would be so mad.
And I bet it happened so fast the person who it actually was didn't even know.
What just happened?
Went to get a haircut today. Barber. What do you do for a living? Me. I'm a writer. What about you? Barber. I'm a barber.
What?
We didn't speak for the rest of the haircut. I am happy to announce that I shall never be interacting with another human being again. This one's great. 3 years ago, a cute guy I worked with wanted to give me a fist bump. I thought he was pretending to hold an invisible microphone, so I leaned forward and said, "Hello?"
I used to work with a guy who had lost his leg below the knee in a motorcycle accident. One time he asked me if I was busy, and I replied, "I'm busier than a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest." It didn't even cross my mind until he replied, "You know, that isn't really that busy."
I was holding my cat in my arms so the vet could give him an injection. My cat was struggling and frightened, so I bent and kissed his head to comfort him. Only it wasn't his head. The vet had gripped his neck, ready to inject. I kissed the back of the vet's hand.
In other news, I just tried on a jacket in TJ Maxx. A jacket belonging to a girl who was trying on another jacket.
Oh my, can you imagine, no, I was just trying it on, I swear.
Just wanted to see.
It was
looks
really
so good
cute.
on you.
Where'd you get it? 7 years ago, I got into a taxi and asked to be dropped off 3 miles away. At the end of the journey, when I went to pay, I realized it was not a taxi. I'm still cringing.
I was at a coffee shop waiting for my coffee when I ate the largest muffin sample on a plate. Wasn't until I'd started to start one more tasty sample that I realized it wasn't free samples, but someone's dirty plate they'd returned to the counter. Oh. Can you imagine? You're a barista and you're making someone's order. You're watching this guy just eat crumbs off a dirty plate. I was working at a restaurant and the bar was full, and I was entering some drinks in a computer next to this patron who was saving a seat for his friend. An old high school friend comes up to him and they chat a bit and talk about how nice it is to see each other. She asks if he minds if he takes the seat next to him, and he states he's actually meeting someone, and he apologizes. She says in a confused voice, "We were supposed to be meeting." All the blood drains from his face and he realizes he thought he had been talking to someone else as she had said a name like Alex or something to that effect.
Oh no! I would die.
Right?
It's so hard to even, get to that point and then to realize he thought someone different.
My friend was talking to some guy working in the facilities department. My friend tells him, "Did you know Doug? He used to work in facilities. I wonder what happened to him." The guy tells him, "Yeah, it's me. I'm Doug. You don't recognize me?" I'm gonna exclude some words here because he used a lot of unnecessary swear words in here. I'm driving through the middle of backwood Mississippi, very rednecky. I stopped at some dirty little gas station to fill up and use their dirty little bathroom. I'm using the stall and someone comes in behind me and uses the urinal. We're the only two men in there. This complete stranger says, "You want anything?" I froze in terror. I was speechless. He says, "Hello, you in there?" I seriously thought I was getting propositioned straight up Deliverance style. Just then another person enters the bathroom and this guy is shocked to recognize him as his grandson.
Oh, that's terrifying. I just told my family I was thinking about trying Madison Reed, the home hair dye, but I got confused and said I was going to try Ashley Madison. For anyone who doesn't know, that's the website where you can it's probably not even out there anymore because a bunch of it leaked and a bunch of famous people were using it to cheat on their spouse.
Well, that's the whole website is made for cheaters. I'm just gonna give Ashley Madison a try.
Especially terrible if you're talking to your husband and children.
Right?
In my first professional job as a lowly admin assistant, I sent out a company-wide email asking for images to be used in our ad campaign. Subject title, urgent. Please send mad pictures. How do you explain that?
I was at the water park around 15 or so, floating through the lazy river, and came around the bend to see an absolutely gorgeous young lifeguard on the side. Took all my courage and smiled and waved a little. He looked at me like I was insane. I get a little further and realize one of the waterfalls had pushed my bikini top down, and I had smiled at him with a boob hanging out. Even better that it was just one. Hey.
Maybe she thought it was that guy that bent down and kissed it. On the phone with tech support for a computer problem, I explained that, while the problem persisted, I'd come up with a workaround. Only I did not say work. I said reach. Silence for a beat, both ends of the phone. He sat mortified. The tech support kindly just moved on.
We're just gonna ignore that. I was walking across the parking lot towards the entrance of the grocery store as a man was walking out. The sun was right over the building and shining directly in my face. Suddenly I noticed something sort of fluttering or flying around next to my face, and I assumed it was some kind of big bug and started freaking out a little, frantically moving my upper body around to dodge it and just trying to swat it and making what I'm sure was a rather unattractive face. It was a leaf. The man walking towards me, who did not have the sun in his eyes and could see it was a leaf the whole time, tried to stifle his laughter as he passed.
All right. Well,
I mean, this episode definitely feels like hanging out with Bre and Jess.
Exactly. That is all this episode was.
Yep.
All right. This was Dungeons and Dopamine podcast. I hope you are feeling all of the secondhand embarrassment. Not you, Bre, but
She
you
was
as an
looking
audience.
directly at me when
In
she
her,
said
I'm
that.
looking into her soul.
You can listen to us anywhere you stream podcasts and even on YouTube.
You can support us on Patreon or, well, let's just get straight. You can support us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/dungeonsdopamine and look forward to eventually a Dungeons and Dopamine After Dark.
Mm-hmm. Where we talk about things just a little bit beyond what we normally talk about day to day.
We actually even have some embarrassing stories for it.
Mm-hmm.
That'll probably be our first upload.
Yeah. You can also find us on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and even Reddit.
And you can reach out to us on those. You can research as well. And we would encourage you to, or you can email us at dungeonsdopamine@yahoo.com.
Feel free to share your own embarrassing stories
Please.
or TikToks of your favorite embarrassing stories, because obviously it makes us giggle. So it's a win. Dungeons and Dopamine is edited and published by Argyle Pigeon Productions.
Arf. That Spot.
Cute.
And that was it. We're done. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.